In this video of the Historic Ordnance series, we're going to look at another mine that has been getting employed in Ukraine since the war started. And I've been holding off on doing this one because other people have done videos on it and that stuff. And I was trying to see if, more information would come out. Would someone link to a manual or something like that for more information? So I've looked at different videos on YouTube. I've gone through what declassified information there is out there. I've also gotten information from the manufacturer as best I can. So what you're looking at here is an Estonian PK-14 directional anti-tank mine. This is also known as the M14, the K-14, and some people refer to it as the Terra Mill. The Terra Mill is actually the main marketer or manufacturer, designer of this mine, and it does get produced by a subcontractor. Now, this mine was adopted into Estonian service in 2015. Currently, there is only 2 known militaries that employ this mine. The Estonian and Ukraine. Ukraine got them in 2022. Now, I have seen pictures of these being found in caches in the Middle East, but I'm not sure where because it was a while ago when I seen those pictures. I don't know if it was in Lebanon, Syria, or Gaza, but it was somewhere in that general area. I know I seen some of these on some press releases of captured terrorist weapon stockpiles. Source for those, really simple, Ukraine. Anything that's been sent to Ukraine, you have ended up with a large amount of that on the international arms black market. Some of that got bought up and is being used by terrorist groups. I do not know for certain. These have been used against military vehicles in the Middle East. Most likely they have been. It's just the military that was the target of it didn't know the specific model of mine that hit them. Now, some of the technicals on this. The diameter of the shape charge here is 6 1/4 inches. The shape charge is an EFP. We have an explosively formed projectile here, so we have shape charge with a copper plate on the front of it. It is inside a plastic housing. Now, the depth of the mine here from front to back to probably the back of the shipping cap here is around 4 1/3 inches. I cannot get a total height of the mine with tripod. Explosive content on this is PBX, with the explosive filler being 3 1/3 pounds. I cannot find a total weight of the mine either. Now, temp range for employment on this mine, according to the manufacturer, translated, is around -50 degrees Fahrenheit to a max of around 122, 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Typically, when I see a temp range on this, it has to do with the explosive content inside. The lower end of the temp, that's where you have where the explosive just will not detonate properly because of it being frozen. At the higher end, you got kind of that chemical breakdown that's starting to happen because of the high heat. Now, capabilities on this, reportedly from the manufacturer, it will penetrate 50 millimeters of armor at a distance of up to 50 meters. So this will not work against any battle tank built after World War II. However, reportedly, they are extremely effective against infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and obviously light-skinned vehicles. These mines are meant to be deployed on a tripod. They can be tied to a tree using a strap. They can also be connected to the tree by the use of a L-shaped adapter, which is called a wall mount. Safety on this mine is obviously to the rear of it. At roughly a 290-degree arc, 25 meters away from the mine. But even at 25 meters, I would want to be behind some type of substantial cover, because you are going to get the back jet, which will be a lot smaller than the jet coming from the front. When this mine is set off, you're also going to have molten plastic that's going to get shot everywhere like a shotgun shell. Now, reportedly from Ukraine, they can carry 3 to 4 of these mines per person on a patrol. The average, though, is 2 mines per person on a standard ambush patrol. That could be because that was the old Soviet doctrine, which we know the Ukrainians did adopt, where your average infantryman carried 2 mines with them apiece. You know, 2 POM-Zs or 2 PMNs, 2 Mon 50 Claymores. It might be just a continuation of that doctrine. That's why they carry 2 apiece. Now, installation on this is not that much different than an M18 Claymore mine. These mines come in a crate, wooden crate, which I have a picture from the Estonian manufacturer so you can see what the markings look like on the front. Inside each crate, which under this side right here, under this cardboard tray, there's 8 mines. You have 8 spools of shock tube, and each spool of shock tube has the firing device on it and the blasting cap. There are 5 sets for the tripod, which include the mount and 3 legs each. There's 3 mounting straps, 3 L screws, which I'm not totally sure what the L screw is because I have not seen a picture of it. I did look. There are 8 diopter sights, which get attached to the top of the mine. There's 5 adapters, and when they say adapters, they mean this thing here. There's 4 no-nel adapters. Now, when I looked up that one, that didn't make a lot of sense. I ran it through like Google AI to scour the internet, and it said the no-nel adapter is non-electric adapter, and it somehow attaches to the back of the mine. So I don't know, is this some type of special thing that gets attached to the back of the mine so that it can attach, say, a standard non-electric blasting cap that's connected to, say, deck cord, or potentially an electric blasting cap, which is typically longer than your non-electric blasting caps. Maybe that's what it's for. There's also 3 wall mounts, and this is what's referred to as the wall mount. This is also what you use for attaching it to a tree. Oh, the shock tube, each spool is 130 meters in length. Now, for those of you that do not know the difference between shock tube and deck cord itself is an explosive item. When it goes off, the whole thing goes up in the blast. With shock tube, what it is a plastic tube that on the inside of it is coated with RDX and a couple other chemical powders that once you set off the firing device, it sends that spark or that flame through that tube as fast as possible. It will heat up the tube. Sometimes it will melt it as the spark goes down. Its whole purpose is just to transfer that spark all the way through till it gets down to the end, to the blasting cap that's attached. Now, the blasting cap that is on this shock tube is a high strength blasting cap, which means it can be used to set off explosives. Okay, installation. I took the steps that are being shown by people in Ukraine. I modified it a little bit using the steps according to the US M18 Claymore mine to make this a little bit safer, a little bit more accurate than what they're doing in Ukraine, where no one seems to give a crap because everyone's just gonna die soon anyway. So first off, you're going to inspect and inventory. You're going to make sure the mine is in good condition. You're going to make sure the shock tube is in good condition. On the shock tube, you're going to make sure the firing device has not been set off and the safety pin is still there. You're also going to check that blasting cap. Make sure it has not been set off or cut off. You're going to get a general look at the spool of shock tube here. Make sure it does not look like it's been kinked, damaged, that something rammed into it and, you know, left an indentation going across the shock tube. If that happens, that will create a little roadblock inside there that will stop the spark. You're also going to inspect your mount, either which type you want, the tripod mount or the one that's on your wall bracket here. Make sure it's not damaged, that it can still be attached to the mine. You're going to check out your sight, make sure it's not too messed up that you can't use it. The sight is nothing special. All it is a tube of plastic with, you know, a little piece on each end with a hole drilled through the center that you look down and line up generally towards your anticipated target area. Here you see the shock tube a little bit better with the firing device is stored inside here. This is what the firing device looks like after you remove the safety pin, which is typically right in here. When it's stored inside the shock tube, this little pull ring here is folded over onto the firing device so it does not snag on anything. Now everything passes inspection. You're going to take what you need. You're obviously going to take the mine. You're going to take one of the diopter sights, whatever mount that you need, and your spool of shock tube. If you're going to set these up in a series, you're also going to bring your adapter. Now you're going to transport everything to the target location where you're going to put in your ambush. Once you're there, you're going to choose the specific location you want to stop or damage that vehicle at. You're also going to choose the location where you're going to set up the mine, and you're going to choose the location where you're going to fire the mine from. Once you have this chosen, then you're going to set up your mount as needed. So if you're going to set up your tripod, you're going to take the mount here. You're going to just stick in the 3 fiberglass legs into it. You can put them in the holes on the bottom here like this to make them tripod. You can put them in on the ends here if you see this little hole. There's one on each of those 3 spokes. That will essentially lay it very flat to the ground, make it more stable. That would be a feature for when you would use this primarily, my guess is, in snowy environments. Especially windy snowy environments. You put them up higher, they're going to blow over. Get yourself the legs spread out nice and wide, lower chance that that's going to happen. Once you get your mount set up, you're going to attach the mine. And here you can see the top of the mount. The mine will just slide into this little channel right here on any one of these little spokes going around the main part of the mine here. From front, slide it to the back. And that will kind of lock it in place. Once you got it on your mount, you got it generally pointing the direction you want it to go. You're going to slide on your diopter sight. It can get slid on the side, it can get slid on the top, wherever you so choose. Then you're going to do your initial sighting. You're going to look down that tube. You're going to loosen up the little wing nut here on the back of the mount. It's the same type of setup on that wall mount. Loosen that up. Move it back and forth on the ball mount there. Get it aiming at the exact location you want. Tighten down that wing nut. Then you're going to remove the rubber shipping cap off the back of the mine, and you're going to insert the blasting cap into the mine. You do not have to put on any adapter to hold it in place. It is going to be a little bit snug. You just feed it in there and it will get held into place. Then you're going to do your final check on your sight. Make sure you haven't moved it. Make sure to lock down your wing nut here so it is for sure stabilized, pointing where you want it to go. You're then going to run your shock tube from the mine going back to your firing position. As you're going back, I would really recommend, like with a claymore, wrap it around a stake a couple times, say within 2 meters of the mine, put in a stake, wrap the shock tube loose around that, string it back, and when you get back to your firing position, put another stake there, get a couple wraps around that, unspool the rest of the shock tube or as much as you need, and pull out the firing device and have it ready. Make sure you do not have any hard bends or kinks on that shock tube. If anything falls on that shock tube, you run the risk that you could jam that tube together and it will misfire when you want to set it off. Now, if you're going to be setting them up in a series, you would be running the shock tubes from the different mines back to the adapter here, put them inside the hook. Make sure they're all together, close together. Your blasting cap will get inserted from another set of shock tube. Will get inserted from the back here going all the way through, and it will come up through, closing off this channel here. Push it forward to right up against those shock tubes. Remember, it is a blasting cap, so don't try ramming it in there extra tight. Just make sure it's nice and snug in there, that the blasting cap's not going to fall off, that the shock tubes aren't going to come apart. And then you would continue with running that shock tube system back to your firing device to set them all off at the same time. Now, when the target would be inside the kill zone, you're going to pull the safety pin from the side of the firing device here. Pull this bail back to its straight back. Put a couple fingers inside this giant D-ring here. And then as soon as the enemy vehicle is inside that kill zone, pull back with the hand that's inside your pull ring here. And this will pull straight out. I got a feeling this is kind of a friction igniter. One hand will be holding the firing device, the other hand pull this straight out of here. It'll start the spark going down the channel, going through that shock tube, setting off the mine. And the way explosives work, it'll start detonating here and back, pushing its way forward. And as it's pushing its way forward, it's pushing this cone outward, starting in the center, going to the outside, superheating it, creating that molten projectile which will slam into the side of the vehicle. In Ukraine, they do love setting these up in tree branches over the tops of roadways, and when an enemy vehicle is underneath, especially an infantry fighting vehicle, they set it off to send this down through the roof to bypass any additional caging that's on the side, or if the armor on that vehicle is just a little too thick for it. Top armor is going to be a lot thinner. It'll punch right through and take out those troops. Now, removal of this, if you do not set it off in the ambush, you're going to go through, untie it from the stake, make sure your firing device still has the safety pin inside, make sure your safety bail is set over the middle, put it back in the center of the spool, start spooling that shock tube back on, moving towards the mine. Once you get close to the mine, set the shock tube down on the ground, gently remove the blasting cap from the back of the mine, replace the rubber shipping plug, lay the cap down on the ground, go back to the shock tube, spool it back up to that last stake, remove it from around the stake, and then slowly pull that shock tube in, reel it in, and then get a hold, positive control of that blasting cap, finish spooling it in, and then put the blasting cap back in the channel. If you're able to, no guarantee you will, remove your diopter sight so you do not damage it. Then remove your mine from the mount. Take apart your mount or remove it. Now, these wall mounts, as they call them here, these can be attached to trees using a strap. That's what the 3 mounting straps are that come in each case. That's if you end up with a tree that's just got that thick of a bark on it, or it's too many channels in the bark that you're not going to get a good facing between the tree and this part of the mount here. Then you use that strap that you tighten down. You know, loosen up the strap, remove the bracket from the tree. These can be nailed or screwed to the trees. How you're going to get it off at that point without damaging it for reuse, I don't know. Very likely you're going to remove the mine and try prying it off, and if you damage it, oh well, you still in theory have tripod mount for it. So these mines are getting a lot of praise from the battlefield, is what I'm picking up from reading on this stuff out of Ukraine. They really like them. They're a lot lighter than the Russian, previously Soviet MON 100s, which are based on the Viet Cong DH-10s from the 1960s. These are a lot lighter, just as effective. So the Ukrainians love carrying these around, love using them. This is a type of mine I'm actually surprised we don't have something basic like this in the U.S. military. Yes, we do have the SLAM, but this seems a little more idiot-proof, is the best way to put it, which to me means it's a more effective mine. Less things that can go wrong to cause a misfire. So, not too many countries have this, only 2, but one of those countries has a record of officials and military officers being corrupt and selling stuff for as much money as they can get on the black market. So this is a mine that I do expect we're going to see a lot more of. And as the war in Ukraine goes on, I got a feeling we're going to see countries copy these. Especially those third world countries that can't make, you know, their own version of the SLAM. Well, if they can melt plastic and they can make small shape charges, they can make their own version of this. It's really simple. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essay-ons.